introduce our keynote speaker to MSC 2019. He has presented programs on the spiritual dynamics of MS and DS relationships and has delivered keynotes and keynote addresses at conferences and events throughout North America for over 18 years. His awards include the Southwest Leather Conference Leatherman Heart Award and the Master Slave Conference Slave Heart Award. Most recently, he and his master were honored with the Guy Baldwin Master Slave Heritage Award 2017. He is currently a licensed kink-aware psychotherapist in Los Angeles. Sometimes we think we know a lot about our friends, and we don't. I have had the privilege of knowing tonight's speaker for close to 2 decades. He has been at this event every year, but one. Still, I really did not know the real history behind the man until I read his book, Jolted Awake, an unconventional memoir, published a couple of years ago, and by the way, available in our MSC office. Now I can say I know a lot more about him and about his incredible journey. With that personal note, I leave with you our keynote speaker for MSC 2019, Master of Skips, Slave Rick.
Okay, does that work? All right, good. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. So the keynote tonight is entitled, Our Journey Continues, Pioneers, Prophets, and Callers, oh my. Just imagine for a moment, in the beginning, the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Then about 13.7 billion years ago, scientists say the Big Bang occurred. There was a massive expansion that blew up space like a giant balloon, and our universe was born into physical manifestation. Jump ahead now to March 1999 in Atlanta, Georgia, when the master slave community experienced its version of the Big Bang. Mass 99 created an explosion whose time had come that brought our current MS world into manifestation. Mass 99 jump-started and birthed the contemporary MS community. The sparks of that explosion ignited fires in the hearts of many of our most revered prophets with vision and pioneers willing to risk blazing new trails. These were people who found their calling and were obedient to the orders of their higher self. Pioneers like Master Steve and Slave Kirk were instrumental in making the MS contest a teaching title. Pioneers like Master Jim and Slave Marsha brought the International MS Contest to South Plains Leatherfest. Various regions created teaching conferences with regional contests that acted as feeders to international. Other pioneers expanded existing groups and created new groups, as well as more diverse mass chapters. A whole new universe was born for the master slave community. The energy from the Mass 99 explosion has rippled outward, taking many varied forms and shapes. Equally significant is the growth and learning that has occurred over the past 20 years. Pioneers like Master Skip coined the term cathartic flogging and began talking about integrating spirituality with radical sexuality. Pioneers like Slave Master spoke of born slaves whose spiritual calling was to be of service to their owner and to the world. Pioneers like Raven Caldera and his slave boy Joshua have written prolifically for our community. Pioneers like Master Burt, Slave Nadine, and their wonderful academic group have been instrumental in introducing greater research into the MS world. Pioneers like all past and current members, board members of MTTA, Bushman's, and the Bushman's Experience essentially developed spiritual growth weekend retreats for kinky folks. Pioneers like Master Taino created MSC. And of all the conferences that have arisen, MSC is one of the best, in my opinion. Why do I say that? For one thing, this conference focuses exclusively on the MS dynamic and MS relationships, thereby honoring the prophetic vision of the Mass 99 producers and of Guy Baldwin. In addition to MSC's exclusive focus and the wonderful presenters that feel called to return year after year to serve, it is truly Master Taino's heart that makes this conference stand out. No one is better at acknowledging people, from the amazing team of MSC volunteers to the thoughtfulness behind the choices for yearly awards, to the sacred way those who pass are honored and remembered. I know Master Taino can sometimes seem a little rough around the edges. Many of us are. It's part of how we learn to protect the wounded parts of ourselves as we grow up and develop through a lifetime. But what I also know is that once you get through the hard outer candy shell, like in a Tootsie Pop, you always come to the delicious, chewy, sweet heart center. With all due respect, Master Taino, sir, I see you as a delicious Tootsie Pop. Truth be told, I see every one of us as Tootsie Pops. We all have protective masks. We all have hard outer candy shells. But inside, if we stick with it long enough, we come to the same soft, sweet heart center that is the essence and core of each one of us. My task, to the best of my ability, has been to see through that hard candy shell in each person I meet, knowing it only disguises what is truly real and authentic inside. I hope you will consider doing the same as our journey continues, the theme of this year's conference. There are many more prophets and pioneers besides the few I have mentioned, because our family tree is very large. The people I named are important to me, since they are the branches of the tree that comprise my lineage. I honor all limbs and lineages on our family tree, along with any prophets and pioneers that come to mind for you. All are our sacred beloveds. As for myself, I didn't get to attend Mass 99. However, I did meet my master in June of 1999 and first embarked upon the path of slave. A spark of the Mass 99 Big Bang touched my heart, first prompting my growth and service to my master, and then revealing my vocation and service in the world, which has afforded me the great honor of teaching in this community for the past 18 years. If we look at some of the themes of prior MSCs, we get the flavor of the road we have traveled together, as well as the growth in awareness and the expansion of consciousness that has taken place over these 20 years. MSC has included themes like walking our path, creating our reality, building community, our chosen family, and most important to me, being authentic. Our conferences, and MSC in particular, are places where we come to feel at home. They are places of refuge where for a weekend we can be with our people, our tribe, and experience being majority in a world that too often still tries to shame us for being our kinky selves. It is a place where together we acknowledge our heroes and grieve our dead. We've come a long way in understanding and living the heart and spirit of mastery slavery since Mass 99. But as our journey continues, it is important to keep shining light on areas of darkness, on areas where there may only be the imitation of authenticity, areas where continued growth may still be needed. I hope to shine such a light this evening. So where do we want to go next, as individuals and as a people? At last year's MSC, Mama Vi challenged us to step beyond our adolescence and take on adulthood, making adult decisions as our journey continues. What does that really mean now that we are 20 years old? When I was a child, I spake as a child. I thought as a child. I understood as a child. But when I became an adult, I put away childish things. So to put away childish things, perhaps it is time for each of us to do the inner work to once and for all heal our childhood wounds, both literally and metaphorically. We've all grown up with a level of shame in our culture that has been wounding to our kinky souls. We all have a degree of internalized kinkophobia. As an MS community, we've done a pretty good job accepting diversity. We have all colors, all shapes and sizes, all gender identities, and all sexual orientations welcome here. We've come from diverse backgrounds, but to the extent that we were different, whether because we were gay or lesbian, kinky, another color, differently gender identified, or just not the right body type celebrated by our society, we carry wounds of shame and not enoughness. How do these wounds still show up in our lives, in our relationships, and in our community interactions today? What sort of hard outer candy shell have we formed to protect us as egos? What masks do we still wear to avoid the pain of our wounds, even though they cover up our soft, sweet heart centers? Some of us, like me, have worn masks of inflated competence to cover a wound of feeling unlovable or undeserving or not enough inside. Anyone who has read my memoir, Jolted Awake, knows how prevalent and destructive I believe this trance of unworthiness to be in our culture. Some of us wear masks of inferiority that say, please don't hurt me. Some wear masks of uppityness or entitlement, always wanting to look good or be seen a certain way, so no one really knows how bad we feel inside. Perhaps not even us. But if we are to put away childish things and be adults as the journey continues, we must recognize that all of these masks are merely a means of defending and protecting our fragile, wounded egos while hiding our soft heart centers. If we truly want to be authentic adults, we must take off these masks, face and heal the underlying wounds, and realize that the masks are getting in the way of our deeper connection and intimacy with one another. how have we been dealing with one another? Well, as a start, can we please stop judging and jumping to conclusions about one another, especially without having all of the facts? Can we stop gossiping and stop putting down others as a way to pretend to temporarily feel better about ourselves? This isn't kind. It isn't compassionate. It isn't empathetic. And it certainly isn't being our authentic self. Sometimes when we feel small, wounded, and not enough inside, we may try to judge, hurt, and drag someone else down in order to create the illusion that we are powerful. This isn't true power. It is another protective mask that only hides our inner brilliance. How much better would it be to accept, forgive, and love one another, flaws and all, rather than judge one another?
Yeah.
Let's take adult responsibility for our thoughts, our feelings, our words, and our actions. Let's begin to see with new eyes that can pierce the hard protective coating of others, no matter how thick it may be, in order to uncover the sweet heart centers that mark the territory where we are all one. If we are to move beyond ego and live as spiritually mature, awake adults, we must want more from our life than curtain bows and praise, or experiences that we somehow think will boost us a rung higher on the leather social ladder so we can look good and pretend to feel better about ourselves. Let's not be leather social climbers. We are better than that. Can we please check the motivations behind our decisions to run for contests, to enter new relationships, to add members to our families of choice, and to our desire to teach at conferences, in order to be certain those decisions aren't polluted by ego covering up an inner wound? The journey into self, when properly conducted, can be a healing, albeit scary, road. It can mean going into deep and dark waters, places easier to avoid with our defensive egoic styles. But the trip is so worth it. As Joseph Campbell says, the cave you fear to enter holds the very treasure you seek. This is the healing work that I believe is needed. This is the willingness to face our own wounds. It is hard work. It is Jesus spending 40 days and 40 nights in the desert to prepare for his ministry. In such a metaphysical wilderness, there is heightened awareness and stark reality with no escape clauses. This is the inner work we must each be willing to do in order to experience greater healing, which actually means to make whole. Only as whole and thereby holy beings can we prepare ourselves for what comes next as our journey continues. Let's please stop talking authenticity while either consciously or unconsciously practicing ego worship. We are merely egos masquerading as authentic. We are better than this. Let's work to be a whole and healed people who truly know our own hearts so we can move forward as a community as our journey continues. And what do we want as we move forward as a community? Many of us view ourselves as rebels and even outlaws who delight in being different from the norm. As a result, I don't think assimilation into the larger culture is something we as a community seek. But if not assimilation, are we ready to demand a level of acceptance and even respectability in our society? Are we ready to fight for the right to practice our kinky truth without fear of persecution and shame?
Yeah.
We want freedom. According to Malcolm Boyd, a priest, civil rights activist, and now departed personal friend of my master, freedom is a meaningless abstraction unless we honor it, love it, exercise it, respect it in the struggles of others, and make it our own. If we want freedom, what might this require of us? We stand on the shoulders of so many Kingsters who came before us. These are our pioneers. Webster says a pioneer is a person who begins or helps develop something new and prepares the way for others to follow. Our pioneers have been our way showers. Over the past 20 years and before, they have guided our community to the year 2019. I know that there are pioneers in this room, and I am so honored to be connected to you. I am truly grateful for the trails each of you has blazed and the many ways you have touched my life for the good. But folks, many of our pioneers are aging. Some are being called to blaze other trails, and many have already passed away. I'm sad to say, more will pass away. My greatest hope is that this keynote may ignite a spark in your heart that will grow into a fire for greater freedom. I believe we need the new generation of pioneers who feel the calling to move us forward toward greater visibility in the world, societal acceptance, and freedom as our journey continues. Did I say visibility in the world? Is that too scary to even utter? Most marginalized people, like the gay and lesbian community as an example, first had to become more visible to gain societal acceptance. People didn't know their neighbors, friends, co-workers, and even relatives were gay until folks were willing to come out and be more visible. It was scary, and people got hurt and scarred along the way. But pioneers are tough and willing to take one for the team if they feel a calling. So what then is a calling? Webster says a calling is a strong inner impulse toward a particular course of action, especially when accompanied by conviction of divine influence. I'm liking this one, to God. So it takes a calling, a strong inner impulse toward a course of action with a conviction of divine influence to bear the barbs necessary to move the people forward. It is getting in touch with one's soul contract or vocation or ministry or how one is to serve and thereby grow in this lifetime. Is it our time yet? Do we feel deserving of this? And are we willing to do what it takes to achieve hearing the words kink or consensual MS mentioned in polite society? Are we ready to live an honest, authentic life knowing that self-deception is bad for the soul? Would you be willing to take a step and come out to someone who doesn't know that you are kinky or MS? Does that get your heart beating a little faster? As I said, for gay people to begin gaining acceptance and rights, to be seen as something other than degenerate perverts, folks had to realize that their friends, their neighbors, their co-workers, and even their family members were gay. Are there new pioneers in our community who are called to be more visible as a way to move us forward toward obtaining the same protections and rights as other marginalized and persecuted people in our country? Are there any of you willing to stop using scene names for anonymity and protection and to start using your real names? Clearly, this is not without risk. I remember how naked and vulnerable I felt when I published my book 3 years ago and came out of this conference, using my full legal name based on my master's order. I was scared of what might happen and what might be projected onto me. Being more visible attracts greater attention to oneself, both positive and negative. But I was called to put the book out into the world, and as slave, I am nothing if not obedient to my orders, without worrying too much about the outcome of my obedience. I remember how humbled I felt when I started seeing book reviews from vanilla folks who said their whole view of this community was totally changed as a result of reading my memoir. Some said they had previously been judgmental. Some said they had previously been judgmental, but now understood that for those with kinky wiring, this could be a valid path toward growth and self-realization based on what they read. By being willing to put my story out there, a small ripple has been created. Like it or not, 50 Shades of Grey put the idea of kink and BDSM on the radar of the larger world. Do we have pioneers willing to tell their own stories to the world and show the grace that can come from living a kinky or MS life, if that is truly how one is wired? Again, there's no denying that being out of the kinky closet has risks. Right now, people still lose jobs, custody of children, guardianship of elderly parents, and are shamed and demonized in the media just for being kinky. This isn't right, and it must change.
Yeah.
Remember that a calling is a strong impulse toward a course of action, especially accompanied by conviction of divine influence. As a result, I trust that when I am obedient to my inner orders and to my calling, the universe has a way of guiding and protecting in unexpected ways. Bad stuff may still happen, but the seeds of my gifts and greatest service can often be found in what seems at the time like the bad stuff. I also know that risk and sacrifice can be the very environment in which spiritual awakening occurs. Are we ready to embody this level of truth in order to change hearts and minds in the world? It won't be an easy road, but we must start somewhere. If not you, who? While it is valuable and integrating to play in our shadow, as many of us do, it can be soul damaging to live a lifetime of hiding secretly in the shadows. No one can tell you when it is time for you to come out of the kinky closet. Only you can know if you are called to be a pioneer and ready to take on the potential risks. But do consider, are you okay with going around pretending to be you? Are you okay spending the rest of your life living a lie? I find that the more willing one is to grow beyond ego, the tougher the challenges become in order to rub off any remaining rough egoic edges. Are you willing to be rubbed smooth? Just as people of color needed to face their fears in order to seek rights in the larger community, is it time for people of leather, or people of kink, or people of MS to move beyond fear and do the same? When we work for societal change in the world, our inner strength will be repeatedly tested. But please also consider those who are too afraid to even explore their own kinky wiring because of the dictates and shaming of our current society. Would being more visible create a ripple that would offer them greater support to be authentic? If you can see us, then you can be us. I know what I'm saying may be scary for many. Believe me, I've known fear firsthand in my life. But I subscribe to Meg Cabot's quote that courage is not the absence of fear, but the judgment that something is more important than fear. I am hoping this keynote may be for some a mini Big Bang, a slap upside the head, which prompts you to explore what will give your life the greatest meaning on the anniversary of Mass 99. As someone who spent a good portion of his 30-year government career working with persecuted political asylees and often traveling to refugee camps around the world when bad stuff happened, I have a good sense of how many people in the world live. Despite the dark current political times in our country, we still live very privileged lives. Few in this room are worried about finding their next meal, where they will sleep tonight, or if a bomb will drop on them when they step outside of this hotel. That is not the way much of the world lives. They are worried about these things. As my teacher Eli often said, how will you use and not squander this privileged life you've been given? Because who knows if this chance will ever come around again? How will you serve and support this community that you call home in moving toward greater respectability and acceptance in the world? As my master taught me, the shamans, priests, and spiritual bridge builders are often the outsiders of society. Is it possible that we, as an outsider community, have a prophetic destiny to play a role in the evolution of consciousness on this planet? This is a call to all pioneers, to all prophets with vision, to all peaceful warriors, to all nonviolent activists. Are you willing to become the opening through which greater love and authenticity and acceptance and freedom pours back into the world? Listen inside. Am I speaking to you? Thank you.